From training to performing, join our big league conversation. Welcome to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast with your host, Eric Cressey.
Welcome back to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cressey, and this is episode 41. We're back after a brief holiday hiatus, and we're coming back with one of the best closers in Major League Baseball today, so we're in for a real treat. If you want to develop faster and train better, you need the best gear. And with that said, we've got some really exciting news for you. The number one baseball brand in the world, Rawlings, has partnered with us at Cressey Sports Performance to make getting the best training gear for you more affordable. Simply head to rawlings.com and use the coupon code Cressey20, that's CRESSEY 20 at checkout, and you'll save 20% off your order. This offer is only valid on select items, but there's a ton of great gear you'll save 20% on that will help you become a better player. So shop now. Again, that's rawlings.com, RAWLINGS.com, and enter the coupon code Cressey20, CRESSEY 20 at checkout, and you'll get 20% off on your order of some absolutely awesome baseball gear that we use every day with our pro guys. Today's guest is a left-handed pitcher who played high school baseball in Minnesota and was drafted by the Florida Marlins in the second round of the 2008 MLB draft. He made his major league debut for the Marlins at age 21 in 2001. He spent several years as a starter in the Marlins system, but was designated for assignment at the end of the 2016 spring training and claimed by the Padres. He quickly became a fixture at the back end of the Padres bullpen in 2016 and went on to lead the National League with 82 appearances. He averaged 11.2 strikeouts per 9 innings on the year and posted a 2.92 ERA. He also became the sixth Padres reliever ever to strike out more than 100 batters in a season. Of all Major League Baseball pitchers, he held left-handed batters to the lowest batting average, 124. In 2017, he was selected as the Padres representative for the All-Star Game, and he wound up becoming their closer in July, going on to save 21 games over the rest of the season. In 2018, he was again named to the All-Star Game, and shortly thereafter, he was traded to the Cleveland Indians, where he became the closer. He's been their closer since 2018, becoming an All-Star again in 2019. He also averaged more than 13 strikeouts per 9 innings this past season. He now has 89 career saves. Please welcome to the show, Brad Hand. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm excited because we've got 2 off seasons together now, but I feel like I still have a lot to learn about like your history beyond just what we see day to day in the gym and also watching you on TV. So I'm curious, you're a Minnesota guy. There are not a lot of Minnesota guys who make it to pro ball, let alone thrive in pro ball. So I want to dig into like your backstory a little bit. You were a multi-sport athlete in high school, correct?
Yes.
And what were your sports?
I played baseball, obviously, and then hockey and football as well.
I got you. And did you do those all the way through high school? Were they ones that kind of tapered off as time went on?
I played hockey all the way up to my senior year, and then football I played all the way. I didn't play my senior year because I was doing my college visits for baseball at that point.
I got to assume the hockey calendar in Minnesota is off the charts crazy. Like, was it the kind of thing where hockey season was like playoffs while baseball practice was already starting, or how did it work?
Yeah, I mean, in Minnesota, obviously, everybody there plays hockey, and even if it's not, with your high school or whatever, you're going out on the lake or in the backyard on the pond to, play hockey. So, I feel like everybody in Minnesota does everything for hockey year round, where, I just kind of put on the skates when the first day of tryouts, and that would be the first time that I skated all year, where I was doing, baseball stuff, all, fall and winter, traveling and trying to get scouts to see me somehow.
Absolutely. I grew up in Maine, and we've coached a lot of guys in Massachusetts. Usually like the high school baseball season starts like the third Monday in March. The first 2 weeks is shoveling snow off the field while you throw off turf mounds indoors. Like, when does the Minnesota high school baseball season even start? Are we talking like late April before you can even get on fields?
I felt like we always started maybe middle or like beginning of April. I know we had like our tryouts. It was always right around my birthday, which is March 20th. So, for some reason we'd always have tryouts that week, but it'd always be indoors. And then if we got lucky enough in the and the concrete outside and the parking lot wasn't covered with snow, we would go throw out there instead of in the gym. But, those first few weeks were definitely in the gym or throwing off. I don't even think we even had turf mounds. We just threw off the little raised up whatever, and did it in the gym. So it's definitely an uphill battle being from, those colder states.
Do you think it was a blessing in disguise, though? I mean, anyone who's ever played in, like, whether it's Chicago or Minnesota or, what we see in the Northeast, like with guys up there, like, you've got to throw in some miserable conditions. I mean, it's 30 degrees out. You can't feel your hands. And you're lucky if you get like 5 or 6 starts before the spring season ends before you go to summer ball. Like, was that a blessing in disguise, like learning to pitch A, in miserable weather conditions, but B, also when it's kind of like a shorter season and a lot more pressure on every outing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I felt like I kind of forgot what it was like to pitch in cold situations after being in Miami and San Diego. And then this year in Cleveland was the first time I've ever really had to pitch in it since high school.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my first start my senior year, it was, 30 degrees and snowing outside. So, and I'm trying to, get seen by scouts, and I'm out there trying to grind in the snow. So, I don't know if it really got me ready to pitch in cold, because I totally don't remember what it was like when we went there in March this year and opened the year in Minnesota.
That's right.
I don't ever remember pitching in that cold weather when I was in high school, but I obviously did.
So it's not like riding a bike at all then.
It might have to be part that I moved to Florida as well, and I'm used to different kind of weather nowadays.
Your blood thinned out. It was 58 degrees this morning and people were panicking. So one of the things I'm curious about, like, I know one of the challenges that we've seen over the years, so you were a second rounder. So obviously you're a coveted pick, had tons of attention, whether it's, area scouts or cross checkers coming in to see you. Was there a lot of pressure on you kind of like during hockey season that senior year to like throw bullpens for them and do a lot of like exposure type stuff, or is that something that didn't happen as much back then?
I never had to do any of that. I just kind of, I did like the national showcases or whenever they were, the perfect game stuff, would travel to warmer weather to do that. But I never like threw for any, scouts or anything like that. I had, like, thinking back on it, I didn't even really know like how high in the draft I was going to go or how good I really was. I don't know if my parents kind of like just didn't let me know that how good I was or whatever, but, I didn't know if I was even going to get drafted. It was like the day before the draft, I saw one of the, the mock drafts or whatever on the computer, and they had the Twins taking me in like the supplemental first round or something. And I was like, wow, I had no idea. Like, I was even talked about like going that high. I had no clue. I don't know. I mean, I know I had a bunch of scouts and stuff at my high school games, but I didn't know if they were like college scouts or, pro scouts, or I didn't really know how the whole system worked until, obviously I got into pro ball.
That's 2008. That's kind of like I guess Twitter was around. Twitter wasn't what it is today. And, I remember actually Tom Kohler was talking about, I think, a Nick Saban quote where he said he actually has to unrecruit kids because they've been told how awesome they are for so long that he needs to like bring them back down to earth. Like, it's unheard of for a guy who becomes a second rounder to not realize how good he is nowadays. So, I guess ignorance was bliss 11 years ago, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was probably a better thing, now, like nowadays these kids know that they're good and they're, I don't know, showing off or whatever, but
easy to get comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was just trying to have fun, play baseball, and get better at the time.
Absolutely. No, I'm curious, like looking back on your own like personal scouting report of yourself. Like I said, a lot of guys from Minnesota don't make it to the highest level. And I mean, you made it to the big leagues at 21. What differentiated you as a high school? What made you a second rounder out of high school in your eyes?
I was a fairly, bigger and stronger kid when I was in high school. But obviously I was left-handed and I would get it up to 95 in high school. So that probably helped me out a little bit.
Yep.
My mechanics were, not the best. But I was a 2-pitch guy. I only had fastball, curveball in high school. And, walks were always the thing that hurt me when I was in high school. They still kind of did, like early in my career in the big leagues and the minor leagues. But, Yeah, I'd probably just say in being big and strong and,
Yeah.
having that velocity at that age.
Yeah, and 95 was a much bigger deal 12 years ago than it was
Oh, yeah.
now. I mean, pretty much everybody seems to have 95 when you look at national events, but it wasn't like a lefty on every street corner throwing 95 in
Yep.
2008. So
Yeah, exactly.
what changed? Like as you, because obviously you drafted at 18, but you're in the big leagues 3 years later. What was the biggest adjustment, high school to minor leagues to big leagues? And then we'll talk about how it's changed once you were in the big leagues. How did it evolve?
Yeah, I know my first like full season was in 2009. I was in Greensboro and I struggled like really bad that first half. I don't know what it was or, I just had a bunch of walks, was just getting hit around a little bit and it just like everything was falling apart. And I had a good pitching coach that year, Charlie Corbell, where I still kind of keep in touch with him. He always gives me crap. I was just I was an 18-year-old kid. I don't think I was enjoying being by myself and being, alone at 18. And then that second half of the year in 2009, I really, started to figure some stuff out. And, if you look at my numbers, the first half, second half of that year, I think I really started to, get better that second half. That pitching coach was super hard on me, but, at the time I probably thought he wasn't the coolest pitching coach, but, now I'm really, thankful for what he did because I think he helped me out a lot and, just made me focus more and, really concentrate on everything, just not at the field, outside of the field and all that stuff.
I gotcha. Was there mechanical changes? Were there pitch mix changes like right when you got to pro ball, or was it more of the mindset like, hey, we took this guy pretty high, let's leave him alone and see how he does?
Yeah, my mechanics still to this day aren't the cleanest thing you've ever seen, but they just kind of they didn't try to change me per se. They just tried to calm some of it down, make it more simple. Just gave me a few keys to work on. I know when I would start, missing balls arm side high that, my front shoulder would be flying wide open and everything would kind of sail out that way. So, one of my keys that's, still to this day is, staying in my lane and keeping my direction towards home plate. That's one of the big keys for me.
Absolutely. And then you also, when did the kind of the change from the curveball to the slider happen? Was that earlier or was it later on in your minor league career?
I never threw any sliders in the minor leagues. It happened when, my last year there in Miami.
Okay.
I'd been kind of back and forth from, bullpen starting. And I felt like when I was in the bullpen, the curveball was just a tougher pitch for me. It'll be able to, consistently throw for a strike. Like I'd be able to, maybe get some swings at it in the dirt, but I could never, like 2-0 when I was behind the count, like I had no confidence in that pitch throwing it for a strike. So I wanted like a smaller breaking pitch that was easier to throw for a strike. So started playing catch with a slider, messing around with a bunch of different grips. And, the catcher there was Mathis at the time and he had known that I'd been, messing around with it, playing around with it. And we were actually in San Diego. And I came into the game and he was catching and he randomly called it one time, like knowing I'd been messing around with it. I was like, all right, I'll throw it. And it happened to be like pretty good. I think I ended up striking the guy out on a slider and, I just kind of started mixing it in a little more and more. And then, that year ended and that following year was the year that I ended up getting picked up by San Diego. And, after that, I was just basically fastball slider mixed in like 5% curveballs. The pitch kind of just took off for me.
How do you, I know there are different perspectives on how, to throw both curveball and sliders, right? I know some guys, with a curveball, still just rip it. Other guys feel like they really have to like get to the front of the baseball. And it's kind of the same way with the slider. Like what was your mindset when you threw the curveball that, basically helped you to get you drafted into the big leagues, but you ultimately scrapped? How did you view it?
Yeah. My curveball would always feel like I want to get, on top of it and, throw it out front. But I had always I felt like my arm slot would always climb on my curveball because I wanted to get on top of it so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's when, one of the things that, hitters might have start picking up on and not swinging at it as much as I would get a little bit higher on that than I would in my fastball because I'm trying to get on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that slider, I'm probably the same slot as my fastball, which probably makes it more effective for me.
Absolutely. Now, when you throw the slider, there are guys that manipulate it. There are other guys that just like grip it and rip it and trust the positioning of their hands. Where do you kind of stand on that spectrum?
I just kind of grip it and rip it. And I got I kind of found this grip that I like that
Mm-hmm.
is kind of different than, most people. I hold it kind of the same as my two-seam fastball,
Mm-hmm.
maybe just a little bit, on the side, but I just grab that and, try to rip it as hard as I can. And I personally think that I'm trying to throw it straight until like the very end. Like I'm thinking fastball. And then at the very end, when I'm out front, I rip it hard. The good ones that I throw, I feel like I'm, looking at the right-handed hitter's, back foot and trying to throw a fastball there is what I'm thinking, but I'm really probably not doing that with my hand a little bit. But, obviously there's different times where, early in the count, you might, kind of just flip one in there maybe a little bit and it's not as sharp, but, or behind the count too, like a 2-0, like they're not looking for a slider. If you just spin one up there, it's still as effective.
Do you think, I'm once you have a good slider or really any good breaking pitch, I feel like you become like a source that all the guys go to and ask. Like I know watching Max around the facility, like, one of his bits of advice to guys is you gotta like throw it a lot, throw it in catch play, be comfortable spinning the baseball. Like when guys come to ask you about sliders, like what's your biggest recommendation to them? Then B, like what mistakes do you see them, making the most with it?
I feel like guys just try to, be too cute with it and try to make it, do more than it really should. I mean, sliders, I feel like I got a, pretty big breaking slider. A lot of sliders are, smaller breaking. So, you just got to have that, you find a grip that, works for you and, don't be trying to make it move too much because you want it to look exactly like your fastball. You want it to, come out of the same, that same tunnel, the same arm slot, and then in the same arm speed as your fastball. So you try to, keep it the same as that and trust it.
Do you try to keep it like small and tight, like in catch play, or will you look to make it a little bit bigger?
I try to keep it small and tight because I know in the game it's probably going to get a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So when I'm playing catch, I try to keep them. I try to keep my hand on top of the ball and make them smaller. I don't really want to see the break in it. Cause I know it's going to break. So I don't really want to see this big old loopy thing. Cause then I know it's, I'm getting, underneath it or I'm getting around it. If I see something that's, pretty small and pretty late, that's what I like to see when I'm playing catch.
Absolutely. No, I'm going to shift gears. You alluded to the delivery. And the delivery has obviously changed over the years. It's an interesting delivery. Like you can look at it and to be honest, like for lack of a better term, it almost looks like apathetic. Like it's very short in the stride. There's obviously a fair amount of deception. Funny story. One of our other pro guys, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but one of our other pro guys told me that a teammate of his, after facing you, once went to his GM and said, you need to trade for that guy so that I never have to face him again in my career. So it clearly makes people very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What do you think it is? Is it that it's so closed off? Is it that the front side is like a little bit higher and, it's disguised? Like what is it about a seemingly like apathetic looking delivery that gets on guys so quickly?
I don't really know what it is. I know that like the guy that used to call the games for San Diego would, he would call my leg kick like I was starting a motorcycle where I'm just like trying to kick it. So, he was like calling a game and he was like, they were playing my delivery in slow mo and he was like, oh, there he goes starting the motorcycle. And then he's firing it. I don't know. It's kind of funky. I think I'm, real slow. You're real slow leg kick and then everything's slow and then it, maybe kind of just jumps and gets going fast. I don't know, what it is.
I know like, we've had like Blake Trinan and Mike Soroka on the podcast before and Trinan actually made this comment and then Soroka commented on it afterwards. He said, you can't generate velocity until front foot strike. Is that almost a cue for you to not be too aggressive too early? Like it's slow, go?
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that, will get a lot of guys out of whack is when they're trying to get create velocity or create arm speed, before that front foot is down, because it just throws your timing off. I feel like you just wait for everything to, like generate your power, and then you get that foot down, and then everything just goes from there, is the way, I kind of feel.
Right on. And I'm actually really curious about this, and we haven't talked as much maybe about in-season side of things. So you've gone over 80 appearances before. You've been over 70 multiple times, but you did it after coming up largely as a starter, and made that transition largely in 2015 into 16, I guess.
Yep.
How hard was it for you to adjust your throwing program, going from a 5-day rotation to a scenario where you literally are probably going to get hot in some capacity, like 2/3 of the games in the season?
Yeah. I probably didn't change my throwing program, very much. I felt like maybe if I, hadn't thrown in a few days out of the bullpen, I'd maybe stretch it out a little bit more, during catch play. But, out of the bullpen, you just really gotta, listen to your arm, and, kind of, it's day by day, it's going to change every day. As a starter, it might be a little different, but, if you need a little bit of a blow, you've been throwing a lot, like, you don't need to blow it out and play catch to 120 feet. You can play catch to 90 feet. And, as long as you're doing whatever you need to do to get ready to, be available for the game, those are the ones that matter later in the day. So, just trying to save your bullets and be smart about it.
One of the things I always, lean on veteran bullpen guys who have been through it a lot before is what advice do you give to up and coming arms? Like when a kid comes up, to the big leagues for the first time and he's in the pen, what advice do you give them about just understanding, listening to your body, communicating with pitching coaches / managers on usage? Do you have hard and fast rules that you like to apply? Are there days where you'll go in and be like, hey, I'm not hot today? Or are you kind of, in a scenario where you feel like they come to you and you have a discussion about it?
So I never want to be told that I'm down. I want to be available every single day. So I've had a few times this year where, they had told me that I was down before the game, and I was, trying to fight my way into that game. Cause I always felt like if my arm feels fine, there's no reason that I, shouldn't be available to pitch that day. No, I don't if I've pitched 3 days in a row and my arm feels, good, I'm going to be honest to the pitching coach and the bullpen coach. If I'm good to go, I'm good to go. There might be situations where I pitch 2 days in a row, and that third day, for some reason, it's just barking. I'm not, bouncing back that day, or, those are the days that, you might be like, hey, I might need a blow. But when I was younger, I would take that ball every single day, and, I wouldn't complain about it. I wanted to be in every single game, especially that year I threw in 82 games. I knew I was right up there, top of the league in games pitched, and I wanted to, keep myself up there. So I kept, towards that end of the season, I kept wanting to get more games. I wanted to, lead the league in appearances.
And there's something to be said. I mean, you punched out over 100 guys out of the bullpen 3 years in a row. I don't know how many people did that between 16, 17, and 18. I can't imagine it was a really big number of people, but I mean, it speaks to the durability side of things.
Yeah.
In being a strikeout pitcher, though, are there times when you are still going in there and trying to pitch to contact, or are you one of those guys that is trying to punch everybody out?
As a bullpen guy, I'm trying to punch everybody out now.
There you go.
When I was starting, I'm trying to pitch to contact. But ever since I've been in the bullpen, I'm trying to get 3 strikeouts as quick as I can.
It's working. I mean, I'll start every year since you've been there, so that's a good sign. What about the actual training side of things? We talked about throwing. Are you a guy that has specific days of the week? Are you a guy that lifts on certain days of each series? How do you attack your in-season workload stuff?
Yeah, so the way that I've done it since I've gotten over to the Indians is they've done Tuesday, Friday workouts for the relievers. So that's what I've been doing. It's kind of the same as what I'd done in the past before I've got over there. Usually it's once a series, so you play 2-3 game series, which is a week long. You're getting 2 workouts in. But we always do total body, so Tuesday, Friday, a total body. And then obviously we're doing our, running and sprint work, when we go out to play catch.
No doubt about it. I'm curious for you, like, how deep do you dig into the analytics? Cause, you've gone from, I guess, the old regime of the Marlins, which wasn't well known for having that at their fingertips. And then you've gone to the Padres, and now obviously onto the Indians, where, they're known as a very progressive, forward thinking, crew. They give you a lot of resources at your fingertips. How deep do you personally like to dive into that side of things, or are you guy that likes to stay away from it?
I wouldn't say I like to stay away from it. I'm just haven't, really got into it that much.
Yep.
I'm curious about it, but,
Yeah.
I'll need, I wouldn't know what I would be looking for, what I'd be, the numbers I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the things, I've thought about doing more, going into this year when we get to spring training is, sitting down with some of those guys and, just telling them to, just kind of show me what's going on, show me what these numbers mean, and just have them, kind of explain to me how, maybe I could use that information because I've never, had anybody, really tell me how to use that information. So it's one of the things that I'm interested about, and, it's kind of, where the game's going. So, obviously if there's something that, can help you, be a better pitcher or, get more outs or whatever it is, if you're saying you don't like looking at that, then I feel like you're only going to be hurting yourself
I feel like Cap's warming you up to it too.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'll look at these numbers and I'll look at all this information. I'll be like, I don't know if I can really use this. I don't know.
Yes. Sometimes
But
it
as
tells you
long
what
as,
you're already doing too. It justifies,
yeah. So if I can have somebody explain it to me and, kind of understand it a little more, I might be able to, use some of that information.
I got you. Well, we got a couple months before our pro date, so we'll chip away at it. One of the things that there's a saying, I actually heard it from a pro boxer we trained. He said, when you win, everybody wins. When you lose alone. That pretty much describes the life of a big league closer. Like, no one talks about you if you do your job. Everybody hates you on Twitter if you give up a ground ball signal that scores a run. So, I'm curious, like, was that a hard thing to actually take on? It's a lot different than being a starter or a middle reliever where it kind of just all shakes out in the box score. Was that a tough adjustment for you when you actually switched into a closer's role?
It's for sure not a good feeling when you do blow a save. Obviously you're coming in there and you got one job to do and just close the game out. And when you do blow one or something goes wrong and you feel like you let your whole team down and everybody's kind of looking at you like, wow, you're the guy that just cost us this game. That's why we play 162 games. Obviously. It's gonna, when you're a closer, when you're in that position, you're gonna get, nobody's perfect. You're gonna have those games where, you do, blow the save or whatever. But, I've always been the guy that as soon as the game's over, as soon as you leave the clubhouse out, you forget about it and, you just turn the page and you got another game the next day. So, it's tough for sure to, find out, what works and how to forget about it. But, I feel like you just lean on your teammates and, your teammates are going to support you no matter what. And, obviously when you do, blow the save is the one time the media wants to talk to you after the game as a closer. So, usually after those games, you got to wait for them to, ask you what happened.
No doubt. What's your game day routine look like when, so you get to the park, 7:00 game, how are you attacking it? Both like pregame, but also like when do you start getting ready on, basically preparing in case there is a save opportunity?
Yeah. Pregame, I'll get to the ballpark probably about, 2:00-ish. Maybe get something to eat, work out if I need to work out. Maybe look at if it's the new series, we got our pitchers meeting, so we can do the scouting report, stuff like that. And then before the game, I stay in the clubhouse for the first few innings. Kind of get stretched out by the trainers, do some stuff in the training room. go in the weight room and starting to do a little few things in there. And then I'll head down to the bullpen in the 4th inning. Then just watch the game, hang out down there for a little bit. It's fun being down there in the bullpen with your other guys. You're basically just talking about the game, maybe not talking about the game, just talking about whatever. And then usually like the 7th inning, I'll start, moving around a little bit more, maybe foam roll, do some, shoulder stuff, get everything moving and getting ready to pitch, hopefully.
I think the things people forget about too is, I get made fun of by our staff for dropping this line a lot, but small hinges swing big doors. Like, I don't think people realize that when you go through like that prep work every single game for 162 games, even if you don't pitch, it's a good opportunity to get ahead on a lot of things. Too many guys kind of like wait until they have to throw, and then it's take a quick shot of Red Bull, like shake your arm out with a few circles and then go throw 5 pitches and you're in a game. Like, there's actually a lot more that goes on behind the scenes to get to that point.
Yeah. I mean, when my first few years in San Diego, when I didn't know like what inning I was going to be pitching in, it's definitely a little more, you're on your toes a little more. You never know. You can't really have a routine because you could be pitching the 2nd inning. You could be pitching the 9th. So you got to be ready the whole time. Those situations, you just got to, watch the game and see what's happening in the game. If it's a situation where, maybe your name getting called, you might start moving around a little earlier.
Nice, man. All right. Well, we get to this point in the show and we like to kind of go through a lightning round. So, qualities of the coaches you've had and liked, who's been the most impactful for you and why has that been the case?
Yeah, I'd say they're just like very personable. They're kind of like one of the guys, they're very easy to talk to. You don't feel like you're always tiptoeing around them. You can be yourself, and I feel like those are the type of coaches that I've enjoyed.
I like it. All right, favorite pitcher to watch. This can be like somebody that you actually like to watch because you can learn how to how to approach hitters from. Like Kinsler said he liked watching Kyle Hendricks because they pitch very, very similar, or it can just be someone you enjoy for a million other reasons.
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, I've always enjoyed watching Cressey pitch. Those years I had in San Diego, it was always fun to watch him.
There you go. That's not a bad one. Pretty good slider too. All right. What about advice to a teenage Brad Hand? If you could go back in time and give him one tidbit of information, what would it be?
Work on your fastball command at a younger age.
All right. This is one I'm actually really intrigued. What's more important, stuff or command?
Stuff. Nowadays, I
figured that would be the answer from a guy with like a 97 mile an hour fastball.
Yeah.
Who just talked about the lack of fastball command and then a wipeout slider.
You can get away with stuff.
Yeah, I feel like stuff gets you there. Command maybe is when you're at your best, but
yeah.
I feel like that's been 75% of the answer. We've got a lot of command guys in there too. So
yeah.
C-Shack said command. You can give him a hard time at the gym tomorrow about it.
Because he doesn't have the 95 anymore.
He's just a crafty righty. I hope he's listening to this. All right, man. Well, this is awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time and doing this. Folks can find you on both Instagram and Twitter. It's bhand22. Again, thanks so much for taking the time, Brad. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd be thrilled if you'd consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving us a review to read on iTunes. We welcome your suggestions for future guests and questions. Just email elitebaseballpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for your continued support, and we'll see you next episode.